my name is Dailania.
Hi, my name is Sesi.
Hi, my name is Erickson C.
Welcome to our forum.
Thank you for allocating your time on our student forum at Polytechnic Kuching, Sarawak. We are here to listen for a few opinions about the elements of contract in Malaysia, followed by Contract Act 1950. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will discuss about 5 elements of contract in Malaysia. So, I would like to introduce our panel for today's forums. On my right is Mr. Erickson C., the lawyer from Sarawak. Miss Mary Ann, who is the lawyer from Sabah, and Miss Claudia, who is the lawyer from Malacca, and Miss Sim Sui Fung, who is the lawyer from Perlis. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, today they will be sharing for their elements of contract in Malaysia. Mr. Erickson,
Yes.
in your opinion, what is the element of contract that you want to share for us today?
Today I would like to explain you all about the offer and acceptance. But I will start with offer first. Okay, before there be a legally binding agreement between two parties, there must be first of the sufficient evidence of an agreement between them. The user sign that has been an agreement is the presence of the offer and acceptance. Okay, by referring to the section 2 clause A of the Contract Act, state that when a person signifies to another his willingness to do or to abstain from doing anything with a view of obtaining the asset of the other, such act or abstinence, he is said to make a proposal. Here, proposal has the same meaning as offer.
So, how offer could be made?
Offer could be made by express and implied. Express is an offer can be made in a form of word or oral or written, and it's said to be expressed, while implied is a proposal is made by conduct. For example, when a coolie picks a luggage to carry it from railway platform to the taxi, it means that the coolie is offering his service for some payment. This is an implied offer by the coolie.
Mr. Erickson, I want to ask something. Is a display of goods in the shop is an offer?
It is important to know which party makes the offer and which accept. In the case of goods in display in a shop or supermarket, the law has decided that it's the customer who makes the offer by taking the goods and placing them on the cashier counter, and the cashier accept the offer by accepting the customer's money. The price display on the the price display on the goods is not the offer, but only the invitation to the customer to make an offer. It is only a invitation to trade. The law gives the shopkeeper or cashier the right to accept or reject the customer offer. The other example for the invitation to trade is advertisement, a display of goods and services, tender, price list, and quotation. Now, I would like to expand about the acceptance
Okay.
by referring to the contract, referring to the section 2, clause B. The contract state that it means the acceptor to whom the offer is made agrees or accept the offer made by the offeror. Once there is an acceptance, an agreement between the party is created. A contract exists and is binding upon the parties.
Okay, Mr. Erickson, what is the condition of an acceptance?
The acceptance made by the offeree must satisfy certain conditions. If the conditions are not fulfilled, such exception would not be valid, and thus the contract is not valid. The conditions are: acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. The acceptance must be made exactly on the same term as offered without any modification. Any modification in the term of the offer amounts to counter offer. The counter offer is treated as a rejection to the original offer, and therefore there's no valid acceptance exists. Okay, now I would like to tell you about the acceptance must be communicated in some usual and reasonable manner. By referring to the Section 7 Contract Act, the communication of the acceptance must be usual and reasonable. However, there is a mode of acceptance prescribed by the offerer. It must be followed by the offeree. The offerer is entitled to refuse the acceptance made by the offeree, which is not accordance with the prescribed mode of acceptance.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
how the offer and acceptance are revoked?
The offer and acceptance are revoked can be made by communicating the notice of revocation by the proposer to the party to whom the proposal is made. And the second is the time prescribed in the proposal for its acceptance elapsed, or if no time is prescribed for acceptance by the lapse of a reasonable time. And the third is the failure of the acceptor to fulfill a condition precedent to a acceptance. And the fourth is the death or mental disorder to the proposer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harrison, for your sharing for today. Okay.
Alright.
So now we move to Miss Mary, and then I want to ask you, so what the other elements of contract that you want to explain?
The other element that I want to explain is about consideration.
Okay.
So the definition of consideration refer to section 2 clause D. Consideration is something which has a value in the eye of law and it become the basis of the contract. It is a price which is paid by one party in return to promise or act done by another party. It means merely the price in a bargain. The price need to be money but must have a monetary value.
So Mary Ann, are the categories of consideration?
There are three categories of consideration. The first one is executory consideration. The second one, executed consideration. And the last one is past consideration.
Is there any exception of the consideration?
Yes, there are some exceptions to the general rule under which the contract is valid and binding even though there is no consideration in the agreement. The exceptions are provided under section 26 clause A, B, and C. For A, it is writing and registered. B, it is promised to compensate for something done. And C is a promise to pay debt bear by limitation law.
So can you give us example of the situation on how the exceptions of the consideration work?
Okay, for example, if A enter a shop and buys a packet of groundnut, the consideration which A provide is the money, whereas the consideration moving from shopkeeper is the packet of groundnuts. They have each provide consideration for the business transaction. On the other hand, if a person promise to give you 500 ringgit as a gift on your birthday, this promise would not be enforced by a court because you have not provided any consideration for the promise, so that it is a promise without consideration and it's void as a contract.
So how is consideration need not be adequate?
In order for consideration to be valid, it must be measurable in terms of some economic gain or less. A mere moral of obligation is not enough. In legal language, the consideration must be sufficient but need not be adequate.
Okay, now we move to Miss Claudia. So explain what types of element of contract that you want to share today.
Okay, thank you, Miss Diana.
Okay.
Okay, now I would like to share about capacity. Capacity to contract mean the legal competence of a person to enter into a valid contract. Usually, the capacity to contract refers to the capacity to enter into a legal agreement. To enter a valid contract is that she or he should have a sound mind. The age of majority in Malaysia is 18 years old.
So what are the requirements as to capacity?
Um, in order to form a valid contract, the contracting parties must have the capacity to enter into a contract. Every person is free to enter a contract as long as he is competent,
Okay.
having a capacity to contract.
So what are the limitations to contractual capacity?
There are certain limitations upon the capacity of person to enter into a contract. Such section 11 states that every person is competent to contract who is of the age of majority according to the law to which he is subject and who is a sound mind and he is disqualified from contract by any law to which he is subject.
Okay. Who are not competent to enter the contract?
Mm, the person who are not competent to enter into a contract are number one is age of majority.
Minority actually.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Age of minority.
Okay, age of minority.
Okay.
B is drunken person. C is bankrupt.
Okay. Miss Claudia, can you explain more detail about the person who are not competent?
Okay, Miss Diana, I will start with manner. Manner. In Malaysia, a manner is a person under the age of 18 years old. Age of Majority Act 1971. The general rule is that contract made by inferred are void.
Void.
Okay. Is there any exception on this case?
Yes, there are some exceptions such as contract of necessary. B is contract of scholarship and C is contract of insurance.
Okay, thank you. So now we turn to Miss Sim Sui Fung.
Okay.
So what is the elements of the contract in Malaysia that you want to explain to us?
Okay, thank you, Miss Diana.
Okay.
And today I will talk about free consent.
Can you explain more about that element?
There will be free consents when all agreements are contract if they are made by free consent parties. To make a contract valid, not only consent is necessary, but free consent should also be free. According to sections 14 Contract Act 1950, consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion, under influence, misrepresentations, and mistake. A contract is made by mutual agreements between the parties out of their own free will. According to sections 13, There must be meetings of minds as to the nature and scope of the contract. If the agreement is not achieved by the free consent of one or both of the parties, then there is no consensus at either, or meeting of the minds. Such a situation may arise where there are unequal bargaining powers.
Thank you for listening our forum for today.
Bye.
Tok Kibin, hai Kibin.
Hai Kibin.
Tok Irik,
Tu Ire.
Iria.
Tu
Hai
Nina.
Iria.
Tu Nina.
Tu Nina.
Tu Nina.
Hai Ninyo.
Hi Mary.
Tok Nio.
Tu Nio.
Tok budak kecil.
Budak kecil gila. Anak Cino.
Anak Cino.
Cino. Cino.
Cacing tung tung tung, cacing tung tung.
Fang sui, fang sui. Mama.
Wan Soy.
Fang sui.
Hancur hati ini melihat semua gambar diri yang tak bisa ku ulang kembali. Ku ingin saat ini
Hari ini kami beli forum, tapi mereka nih dia beli banyak-banyak barang, saya pun tak tahu.
seperti dulu lagi. Walau hanya sebentar, Tuhan tolong kabulkanlah. Bukannya diri ini tak terima kenyataan, hati ini hanya rindu.